Hello. All right. Sorry about that. I am currently 10 minutes late, but that's not going to stop me from reading the third step towards auto suggestion. So just bear with me one sec. All right, cool. We are going to dive this week into the law of auto suggestion. For those of you who are just tuning in, my name is Michael Music. I've been reading this book, Think and Grow Rich. We're basically doing a deep dive on it. And why are we doing a deep dive? It's because I believe this book has made more millionaires than any book out there. And I feel like, from my perspective, people don't truly understand the depth of this book and what it really contains. I notice a lot of people will read through it and be like, yeah, it's a great book. Cool. Yeah, I kind of enjoyed it, but they don't get rich from it. And I was one of those people. I was actually kind of frustrated that, this really did nothing for me. And that was when I was 19 years old, when I first picked up this book. I read it, I was like, all right, I didn't get rich from it. So basically, I say that all to say it's not about just reading through it, it's about actually doing what the instructions tell us to do. So that's the reason I'm kind of just sharing this out loud with you right now, is to not necessarily teach it, but just have an open discussion on it. And and my goal here is to actually be taking action on this book. I want to treat this is a not a book to me, this is a philosophy. I want to be treating this like a rule book to the way that I live my life. Right? I felt like Napoleon Hill did a great job at just proving what faith was. Right? He spent 20 years of his life without material compensation interviewing the top 500 most wealthy men. And so I think he's got something wise to say. So that's what we're going to read today. Now, today, we're going to be talking about the law of auto suggestion. And this is kind of the staple to the entire philosophy. It's kind of what dictates how successful you are. And I think we'll come across this line. I'm pretty confident Napoleon Hill says something along the lines of that this chapter is the staple of the philosophy, and that all the other chapters or the other steps towards riches are really just ways to enhance the use of the law of auto suggestion. So without further ado, I'm going to dive right in. We are on chapter 4, auto suggestion, the medium for influencing the subconscious mind, the third step toward riches. Autosuggestion is a term which applies to all suggestions and all self-administered stimuli which reach one's mind through the five senses. Stated in another way, autosuggestion is self-suggestion. It is the agency of communication between that part of the mind where conscious thought takes place and that which serves as the seat of action for the subconscious mind. I'm going to repeat that. It is the agency of communication between the part of the mind where conscious thought takes place, and that which serves as the seat of action for the subconscious mind. I'm definitely reading this line a lot differently than when I first read it. It's saying, so I'm pretty confident most people understand there's a fine line, like everything is related, but there's the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Most people understand that for the most part, right? But they don't understand how these two are related to one another. And it's a good question, because how could they? No one, including myself, has actually seen the mind. The mind is invisible, right? Most people, when they think of the mind, they think of their brain. Your mind is not your brain, right? Your mind is so much different. It consists of the conscious and the subconscious, and the two are related to one another, right? But what's that fine line that connects the conscious to the subconscious? I don't know exactly what that fine line is, but I do know from reading this line that autosuggestion rests wherever that fine line is, and it's the agency of communication between the conscious and the subconscious mind. And notice how he says that which serves as a seat of action for the subconscious mind. One thing that I have experienced through going through college and reading all these books, right? I've read over 100 books, and as a matter of fact, I will tell you firsthand that that does not get help you get rich, right? I've read 100 books, and at the end of the day, my income was actually staying the same. And these are all like some of the greatest books ever, right? And I was like, okay, like I've read far more books than anyone has ever even thought about reading. Why am I not seeing the results I want, right? It's because I had all the knowledge in my conscious mind, but I wasn't taking action on the knowledge. So I noticed that's the key. And it's like, okay, so now how do you really get yourself to take action? Right. So first of all, the way to get yourself to take action is the whole purpose of this philosophy, the 13 steps to riches. If you master them, you can be rest assured that you will be taking action and you'll be doing it in a certain way. And yeah, that's the first line. I won't go off on a tangent no more, but like this is serious stuff right here. So, through the dominating thoughts which one permits to remain in the conscious mind, whether these thoughts be negative or positive is immaterial, the principle of autosuggestion voluntarily reaches the subconscious mind and influences it with these thoughts. No thought, whether it be negative or positive, can enter the subconscious mind without the aid of the principle of autosuggestion, with the exception of thoughts picked up from the ether. Stated differently, all sense impressions which are perceived through the five senses are stopped by the conscious thinking mind and may be either passed onto the conscious mind or rejected at will. So you basically got a choice. You got, imagine these five little antennae sticking out, and it's all your five senses. You smell, hear, taste, see, and touch, right? You're picking up things from the outside on a continuous basis. And what he's saying is your conscious mind kind of dictates whether or not they will enter your subconscious mind, which will ultimately determine what you're going to do about these sense impressions, right? So you kind of have like this outer guard, I like to think about it, with your conscious mind. I literally like to imagine sometimes like putting on this invisible headband so that all this negativity does not enter to my subconscious, because then that becomes my reality, right? So that's essentially what he's saying in this paragraph. No thought, negative or positive, can enter the subconscious mind without the aid of the principle of autosuggestion, with exception of thoughts picked up from the ether. So the autosuggestion, the aid of the principle of autosuggestion is the principle in which something ends up from the outside world and truly affects your inner world, is what he's saying. The conscious faculty serves, therefore, as an outer guard to the approach of the subconscious. Nature has so built man that he has absolute control over the material which reaches his subconscious mind through his five senses, although this is not meant to be construed as a statement that man always exercises this control. In the great majority of instances, he does not exercise it, which explains why so many people go through life in poverty. Recall what has been said about the subconscious resembling a fertile garden spot, in which weeds will grow in abundance if the seeds of a more desirable crop are not sown therein. Autosuggestion is the agency of control through which an individual may voluntarily feed his subconscious mind on thoughts of a creative nature, or by neglect permit thoughts of a destructive nature to find their way into this rich garden of the mind. So what would you prefer? Would you prefer to use, like, at the end of the day, we're all using the auto suggestion, right? Would you prefer to use this principle so that you actually are thinking creative thoughts? Or would you like to use it so that you're thinking of all the how to's on how it's not going to work, how it's not going to this and that, and how you're ultimately not going to succeed? It's essentially your choice. And at the end of the day, the principle of autosuggestion just is, and really is reflected on how do you want to use this principle to your advantage, and what do you really want to get out of this chapter so that you understand how to use this principle to its advantage. You were instructed in the last 6 steps described in the chapter on desire to read aloud twice daily the written statement of your desire for money and to see and feel yourself already in possession of the money. By following these instructions, you communicate the object of your desire directly to your subconscious mind in a spirit of absolute faith. Through repetition of this procedure, you voluntarily create habits which are favorable to your efforts to transmute desire into its monetary equivalent. Okay, let me pause real quick. I'm just going to pull out my gold card. All right, so this one's blank. So I want you to just think about, you have your goal card, right? We talked about in the chapter of desire. Essentially, it can all be summed down to this and reading out loud your statement twice daily, which is, truth be told, something that I realize I still am not doing, even though I am teaching Think and Grow Rich. We're not teaching it, but just sharing this content with you. So once again, it's not about reading this, it's about doing it. All right, so he says you are instructed to read twice daily the written statement of your desire for money and to see and feel yourself in possession of the money. I would suggest not going over that. See and feel yourself in possession of the money. And he's saying by following these instructions, you communicate the object of your desire directly to your subconscious mind in a spirit of absolute faith, right? We just did a 5-day deep dive into faith last week. And he's essentially, the goal is to use this principle of autosuggestion to communicate this desire to our subconscious mind. And through repetition, you may create thought habits which are favorable to your efforts to transmute your desire into its monetary equivalent. So essentially, it's this discipline of creating habits that are gonna build up. And we can talk later on about the compound effect and the principle of Kaizen. But these habits that we can establish each day can lead us ultimately to truly being the person that we intend to be with the goal that we have, right? You got to understand that goals aren't meant to get whatever it is that's on this card. They're meant so that you actually become the type of person that can achieve this goal. And now it's the next step, right? You set a higher goal. It's about becoming a better you. So I say that to say it's key for even me to be following these instructions. Now, it's 12:23. I do got to pause it there. I'm on a tight schedule today, but we're going to pick up and continue on with the chapter on autosuggestion throughout the entire week. We're going to do 5 days this week, so this is the first part of it. I'd love to ask you now, what did you learn? What did you like so far about the principle of autosuggestion? What are some things that you've heard before from this chapter, if you've read it before, that you realize, okay, maybe I'm not doing? And what is minor tweaks into how you can be improving upon this? So those are my questions for you. I want to thank you all for watching. This is definitely going to be a huge week because the law of autosuggestion is probably the cornerstone, and Napoleon Hill, I think, would admit this too, to this philosophy. And the rest of the principles are essentially ways of better using the law of autosuggestion. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap things up here because there's some other things I got to do during this period. But I appreciate you all for watching. As usual, I'll end you off as I always leave you until we meet again in time and space. Bye for now. Peace out, Facebook. Peace out, YouTube.